City Council, March 11th, 6 p.m. May we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Costa Junior,
Here.
Councilmember Fernez, absent. Councilmember Villegas. Here. Councilmember Hernandez. Mayor Julian.
Here, we have a quorum. Will you please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, Chief, you know, I increased the temperature on that. I don't know if it's getting too warm for people in here. The thing on the wall there. Is it good?
Turn it off or down?
It depends. Shall we vote on it? Okay. Okay. Next item is moment of thanks, appreciation, or condolences. Is there anyone here in the council that wishes to address that? We good? Okay. The next item is agenda review. Go ahead, please. Okay.
No, there is a longtime resident who passed away, Jose Alvarez. And Ariston and I grew up with one of his sons. It was recent, February 27th. He was 98 years old. Lived a very long life.
Yep.
Very nice man.
Very sharp still to the end.
To the end.
Next item is agenda review. Is there any council member that wishes to change the order of business?
Is this a good time to pull an item? off the
Yes,
agenda?
thank you.
Yes. Number 15 under regular agenda business item. Request by Miss Beverly Taylor, coordinator from the Guadalupe's National Prayer Task Force. They don't want to go with that location at this point. So there's no need to address the issue.
And they have another place. So.
They do have
okay,
another place, yes.
All right, the next item is item 5, community participation. I have one request to speak, maybe two. And is this on, okay. Mr. Alvarez.
It's on. First of all, I want to thank the fire department and the city PD in dealing with an arrest of a homeless person here in Guadalupe. I want to commend the speed that the chief has when he runs down the street after him. I was there, so that's why I'm throwing this at you, okay? Unfortunately, I might have twisted an ankle on that one, but we apprehended the person. The intent, as far as I'm concerned, a process to eliminate homelessness in Guadalupe in a amenable manner that has to be taking care of public safety for the general public. Okay, we have to have a system based on procedure, getting the person out of the street, out of the cold, into a system where they have the funds to protect and give service. The county is remiss on this. The sheriff's department too. We have to start somewhere. But I want to thank the people involved. Now, other issues, the Basque House. It got tagged, literally tagged. An old group, Quad 13, way back. So the whole building got tagged from that perspective. Rumor has it, the school, the cafeteria is not going to have a kitchen. No kitchen, they'll be serving food outside in the patio with no kitchen. Just brought to your attention. It has to be a procedure of fairness and dealing with saving the kids safely. Cleaning of the mural area, where all the grass is growing about 2-3 feet high. I know we on occasion clean it up. That's when it should be. It's really bad from that perspective. That's basically it. And I want to thank you for guys putting the chicken issue on the agenda.
I just wanted to thank the council, Chief Cash and the staff that helped get the flyer into the water bill. I really appreciate that. Hopefully this year we'll see some improvement in the use of illegal fireworks against the, we hope people don't buy them, but thank you very much.
Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak on an item that's not agendized? Okay,
Mayor,
yes, sir.
if there's nobody else, I'd like to introduce somebody. Tara Sanchez, she's our new Recreation Services Manager, and we're happy she's on board. And I don't know if you want to say a few words, Tara, or
Just a quick thank you for having me, and I look forward to serving the community.
Thank you. Welcome. All right, next item, item 6 is ceremonial calendar, Women's History Month proclamation, and Councilperson Villegas is going to read that. What's that? Emily, will you come up? You want to read it over there, or you want to?
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Why don't you stand next to her? Okay, okay. Get up there.
Okay, Women's History Month, March 2025. Whereas throughout history, the vision and achievements of powerful women have strengthened our country and opened the doors of opportunity wider for all women and for subsequent generations of dreamers and doers, but their stories too often go untold. Whereas women today stand on the shoulders of these unsung and sung trailblazers, from suffragists fighting for the right to vote to the women who have played and continue to play critical roles in every sphere of our country's life by constituting a significant portion of the labor force working in and outside the home. And whereas Women's History Month is an opportunity to recognize the contributions women have made to our country and to honor those who blazed trails for women empowerment and who fought tirelessly and courageously for equality, justice, and opportunity in our country. And whereas the earliest reported Women's Day event, called Woman's Day, was held on February 28th, 1908 in New York City, and the first International Women's Day was celebrated on March 8th, 1910, which was last Saturday also. And whereas in 1980, President Jimmy Carter issued a presidential proclamation declaring the week of March 8th as Women's History Week, while the Congress in 1987 declared the month of March as Women's History Month, and has been observed annually since then. And whereas the community of Guadalupe is blessed with women leaders who have provided this community with visions and opportunities to enhance programs and services for residents of all genders. And whereas may we all continue working to build a world worthy of the dreams and goals of all women and girls. Now therefore be it resolved by the virtue of the authority vested in our mayor and on behalf of the City Council of the City of Guadalupe, we do hereby recognize March 2025 as Women's History Month and invite all to study and explore the numerous contributions women have made to enrich our community, state, and country. I'd like to end with a quote, if I may.
Please.
I was going through some articles, and this is a quote by, and the quote is, "Women are like tea bags. We don't know our true strength until we're in hot water."
Okay. And why don't you introduce
Oh, I'm sorry. This is Emily Dredling. And she's actually one of our recreation commissioners and is accepting this proclamation.
yes, gotta say something.
So thank you so much for the opportunity to be here and accept this on behalf of all of the great women in our community that continue to stand forward in various different aspects, and very fortunate to be able to be in a community where there are consistent opportunities for all members of our community to get involved and to be a part of every aspect of our community. And so thank you again, City, for giving the opportunity to recognize March as Women's History Month, and appreciate everything that everyone here in this room does every single day. There are so many things going on that are completely powered by volunteers in our community, and it's truly amazing to see the power of the volunteer work that goes into our community and makes it what it is today. So thank you again for this opportunity. I appreciate it.
one council person that had a job commitment, Whitney, and she is one of the three councilwomen that are here. Now it's good to see ladies in the middle of things. So good. Thank you. All right, presentations, Natural Resource Defense Council, NRDC, California Marine Protected Areas, MPA, petition process update, presentation by Sandy Aylesworth and Bella Sullivan. And I think they're on Zoom.
Yes.
Evening, everyone. We also have a PowerPoint. I don't know if that's visible or not.
We're queuing it up.
Getting there.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, I can start talking to make good use of the time. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. This is a really meaningful opportunity for us. I wanted to just first thank Mayor Julian and also the city council members and the members of the public that are in the room. I'm sorry that we're not there in person. We have meetings in Sacramento this week, so weren't able to make the drive and make those meetings. But should we have the opportunity again, we will be there in person. My name is Sandy Aylesworth, and I'm the Pacific Director of the Oceans Division for the Natural Resources Defense Council. And just a bit about me is that I came to my career in ocean conservation by way of a decade-long career working as a captain and a mate, mostly on educational vessels. The first time I became acquainted with California's ocean was working on a ship that took California school kids out to the Channel Islands. So it was there that I just really fell in love with this absolutely incredible state and returned to settle to live in California almost a decade later. Anyway, Bella, can you go ahead and introduce yourself before I proceed?
Yeah, hi everybody. Thank you so much, kind of like Sandy said, for inviting us to be here. It really does mean a lot to us that we get to sort of share our petition updates with you. But my name's Bella Sullivan. I'm also with NRDC on our Oceans Division. And sort of like Sandy, I came to be working in ocean conservation sort of through lived ocean experiences. I'm Koyukon Athabascan, Alaska native, and I was born and raised subsistence fishing up there, sort of how I got to know the ocean. But yeah, anyways, I'll pass it back over to Sandy to start our presentation off.
Thanks, Bella. So I'm not able to see the slides, but hopefully you all can see slide number 1 that says conserving our ocean treasures, the opportunity of adaptive management and 30 by 30. We can go to the next slide, policy context. And just to orient you a little bit, I'm going to give a bit of the background just so that folks in the room understand the context in which these proposals have been put forth by NRDC and many other organizations operating on oceans issues across the state. So I'm going to first just take a step back and talk about what this process is and where it came from. And then Bella is going to get into the meat of the Point Sal Marine Protected Area proposal. Next slide, California's network of marine protected areas. In 1999, we're going back way back when, the California legislature recognized that there was a need to do more to protect California's ocean against ocean stressors and passed the Marine Life Protection Act, which called for a process wherein the state would, in a scientifically driven way, create a network of marine protected areas that were meant to be ecologically connected all along the coastline. So here you can see the state has many marine protected areas. We have 124. And part of the law itself said that after 10 years' time, the state would conduct a review of the network and say, is the Marine Protected Area Network meeting the objectives of the statute, which is primarily to conserve California's biodiversity, to improve recreation opportunities in the ocean, And I guess, again, just to really ensure that California's ocean is conserved in a way that is where the benefits of it are available for generations to come. Next slide. I'm going to actually skip the slide on the National Marine Sanctuaries and jump to slide 5. So here is the doom and gloom portion of the presentation. But in all seriousness, as we have seen across all aspects of our environment, we are really facing a climate and a biodiversity crisis. And there are many ocean stressors and threats that we're not able to fully mitigate, although there are actions we can take, which I will get to. But some of the changes that have happened in California's oceans since the designation of the state's Marine Protected Area Network are that we are finding that, unfortunately, stressors are becoming more frequent and more extreme. So as an example, from 2014 to 2016, we had an incredibly persistent and damaging marine heat wave called the Blob, wherein something like 4 million seabirds died, and we are still really seeing that the kelp has not recovered, for instance, from that marine heat wave. And those, unfortunately, that was considered to be a highly unusual event, and scientists are saying that we can expect those to become more extreme and more frequent. We also have stressors like increased ocean shipping, which makes our oceans noisier and more polluted. We're seeing harmful algal blooms. There was one a few years ago that caused the closure of the Dungeness crab fishery, which had really awful implications for the Dungeness crab fishermen. And then finally, we know that there are new uses of our ocean that are coming. NRDC is supportive of offshore wind development if done right. However, that would constitute a new industrial use of the ocean. So we're operating in the midst of sort of the big environmental picture of California's ocean facing a lot of stressors. Next slide. The state of the California's ocean in 2024. I just wanted to briefly touch on this recent report by NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, that does a periodic analysis of the California current marine ecosystem. And it found that although the California current has good resilience right now, it cited a number of stressors and said that the resilience of the California ocean is unlikely to be sustained. Next slide, please. MPAs as a solution. So going back to what the marine protected areas are doing for us and what strengthening the network could do for us, I'm now going to bring us to where we are right now. Going back to the fact that we're in the midst of what's called this 10-year decadal management review, there was 10 years of monitoring, and scientists got together and said, here are some of the things we've learned from these 10 years of monitoring. And the signs were really encouraging. Some of the highlights are that the marine protected areas showed that there were bigger and more abundant fish and invertebrates. They found that the bigger MPAs performed better. And when I say MPA here, that stands for marine protected areas. We also found that that marine protected areas that were more restrictive performed the best. So you were seeing areas of where you got a really strong signal in the most sort of rigorously protected areas were sort of performing the best. And then the scientists also said that we're seeing these early signs of climate resilience. So there were marine protected areas where they were able to bounce back faster after that marine heat wave. Next slide, please. So now, given the fact that the marine protected areas showed themselves to be working, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife produced, as part of the review of the Marine Protected Area Network, they produced a series of 28 recommendations. And I will not go through all 28 of the recommendations, but here's how this connects to the proposal we're going to discuss today. the California Department of Fish and Wildlife said one of their recommendations was that the Fish and Game Commission consider changes to the Marine Protected Area Network. And the public strongly supported considering changes to the network. And so in NRDC's mind, this means that this is a real opportunity to look at places where the original network fell short of some of the scientific guidelines. And so there's an opportunity to fill gaps in the network. And then there's also an opportunity to look at some of the current stressors that we have and to say, how can we sort of ward off against those future stressors and shore up our ocean for the coming decade. So one piece I wanted to note is that we have a colleague at the California Marine Sanctuary Foundation who did an analysis of the current network against the science advisory team's guidelines. And she found that in the existing network, we have 90% of the marine protected areas are actually smaller in size than was recommended. And about 70% of them are less connected. So big picture, NRDC and many of our colleague organizations would like to see us close some gaps in the network. And we'd also like to see this decadal management review, adaptive management process sort of harness this opportunity we have to improve the network and really help prepare against some of the threats that we see in our oceans. And I will now turn things over to Bella. If we can skip ahead 2 slides to where it says proposed Point Sal MPA.
Thank you so much, Sandy, for that really hopeful overview and sort of placing us now in the context of the Point Sal petition. Next slide, please. With the map up, if you guys can see that. So what does this petition exactly entail? I'm sure you're all wondering. The MPA boundaries start at Muscle Point and go down to the end of Browns Beach, extending about 3.2 miles of shoreline. The whole area itself is 14.22 square miles. And additionally, the activities in the area, in the proposed area of the MPA, that would still be allowed are swimming, snorkeling, sort of relaxing on the beach, surfing, boating, obviously still hiking all of those beautiful trails out at Point Sal. Additionally, we've also amended our petition to include shore-based wreck fishing. We know that for a lot of residents who are brave enough to carry their fishing gear all the way down those steep trails, this fish is often used for subsistence, so we wanted to keep that open. And additionally, sort of like Sandy was saying, the MPA network was created to maintain these pockets of biodiversity and resilience. So the more harmful activities to the ecosystem, such as commercial fishing and ocean industrialization, like wind projects or offshore drilling, would be prohibited in the area. Next slide, please. So now I'm going to sort of get into why this specific area. Anyone who has been here, I'm sure, can tell that this place is a very, very special place. But now I will kind of talk further about what that means for the ecosystem benefits that this MPA could provide. Next slide, please. So kind of summed up, the main reasons that we are proposing an MPA here at Point Sal are due to the habitat type, biodiversity. It's a huge biodiversity hotspot, and the fact that this could help improve the network by filling this really special place for climate resilience. So sort of like I was saying before, there's a lot of different habitats that would be sort of represented within this very small 14.22 square mile pocket, including kelp, deep and shallow rocky bottom, intertidal, all these different types. Additionally, Point Sal is a larval retention zone for a lot of very important fish and invertebrate species, meaning that sort of the larvae like to hang out here in this one point. It's like due to the currents, that's kind of where they go. So ensuring that they're able to reach adulthood and mature is really good for the species as a whole. And additionally, as I kind of said before, it's a big biodiversity hotspot. Like anyone who's been out there, next slide, please, can see that there are lots and lots of different types of animals. Here is a photo of lion rock, which would be found within the MPA boundaries. And I took this photo a couple months ago when I was lucky enough to get to hike out here. So this is a really important haul out zone for many pinnipeds and roosting site for seabirds. So sort of ensuring that these areas that are of such great importance to all these different types of animals are not being disturbed and that their habitat is intact is really, really important to ensuring sort of long-term ecosystem benefits. Next slide, please. Another photo of some of the sea lions in the beautiful swimming waters around Point Sal. So I kind of just wanted to expand. I'm sure for the people who have been there, you've sort of noticed that maybe A, it's kind of hard to access, and B, there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of visible threats in this like very remote, pristine area. But the remoteness of Point Sal is actually one of the main reasons that we have identified it to be an ideal place for an MPA. So, you know, the MPA petition process right now, as Sandy explained, is giving us an opportunity to protect pristine ecosystems now rather than later down the line before, you know, degradation or sort of more harms can emerge to this specific area. And sort of kind of on that vein, like specifically in this region, Point Sal could serve as a really important MPA as we're seeing sort of more wind projects be proposed in the MPAs right next to it. So if that were to happen, MPA would still be able to, you know, represent those different types of habitats found along the Central Coast. Next slide, please. In the tribal commitment, yeah. So basically, as I'm sure you all know, since you are from this area has very huge historical and cultural significance, ancestrally and today to Chumash people. And so basically, this is something that we really want to uplift in our petition, and it calls on the Fish and Game Commission, the state of California, to consult with federally recognized and non-recognized tribes in the area to determine a co-management situation if the petition were to get passed. Additionally, as I sort of mentioned before with our amendments to ensure that there's rec fishing, shoreline rec fishing, we also wanted to do that to encompass the many tribal members who come to the area who are not part of, or who are part of non-federally recognized tribes, because tribal take, which was originally what we had in place in this petition, is only open to federally recognized tribes. So that's another big point that we wanted to make sure we were accounting for in our petition. Next slide, please. So with that, we'll open it up to questions. I also would like to say, if any of this resonates with you, or if you feel deeply about protecting an area that you know, may love is in your backyard, please reach out to us. We sort of are looking for all the help that we can get in this process, and yeah, we can speak more to what that would look like in terms of support. Sandy, I don't know if you want to add anything else before we open it up to questions.
Any questions from council or public? We have a lady, Stephanie.
I have a question. According to the Chumash Heritage National Marine Sanctuary site, it says that they got that sanctuary status in September of this past year. So what is it that you're doing that's different? Because that says it encompasses 4,543 square miles, and that goes from Point Bouchon all the way down towards Gaviota.
I can sort of take this one, Sandy, if you want. Yeah, so great question. I mean, the passing of the Chumash Heritage National Marine Sanctuary was super exciting. We're really excited to sort of see what the different Chumash tribes in the area are going to do with it. Specifically, a National Marine Sanctuary is different in terms of like the types of activities in the region than this type of marine protected area. So sort of that whole area is, you know, there will be different activities going on. Sandy, I don't know if you want to jump in there as well to sort of comment on that.
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to. Yeah, we are supportive of the Chumash Heritage National Marine Sanctuary. One of the limitations that the sanctuaries have is that they're not restrictive enough to really confer the sort of biodiversity benefits that the MLPA, for example, prioritizes. National marine sanctuaries have a level of protection that scientists have determined to be incompatible with conservation in many of California's national marine sanctuaries. So they're simply too permissive to get the sort of ecological benefits that you would get with a more restrictive NPA. So within the national marine sanctuaries, there are opportunities to sort of conserve specific smaller areas within them. So anyway, I guess we would say that this proposal we could see as sort of helping to bolster some of the benefits that the sanctuary could help provide.
And do you work with the Chumash then? If they already have this in their way, then you would work with them. Okay.
Yeah, we've been meeting with, so we have another MPA proposal that we are co-sponsoring with the Santa Ynez Band of Chumash Indians. This one is not specifically co-sponsored with them. However, we have gotten support from a couple of the different, we've been discussing this petition with them at length, and a lot of different tribal members, Chumash tribal members, from sort of like the 4 main tribe bands in the area, both federally recognized and non-federally recognized, have expressed support for this one, but it's not specifically co-sponsored by them. So I really want to make that distinction. And yeah, it's, tribal outreach has been like one of the biggest components of the outreach type of work that we've been doing with this. So thank you for asking these questions. It's really, really important that, that we're making sure that this is done in the right way.
I wanted to add just one more thing, if that's okay, which is that because this is such an important issue. The adaptive management process is occurring within this broader context of California setting a goal both through an executive order and the state legislature passing SB 337, which calls for the state to increase its biodiversity protections to protect 30% of state waters. And the baseline right now is 16%. So the state is looking for ways to add new marine protections. And two of the ways that the state wants to do that is by strengthening protections within national marine sanctuaries and by advancing tribally led conservation. So I would say that we see this proposal as an opportunity to help achieve both of those objectives, in addition to it being linked to the adaptive management process of the MPA network.
Thank you, Bella and Sandy, for that presentation. I previously met with NRDC about a year ago, and I'm happy to see that the petition has changed to allow recreational fishing. I think that is super popular here in this area. I previously also hosted some cleanups at our preserve, and the kids were super excited when we found shark eggs. They did not know that sharks, dolphins were in that water. So thank you for all that you're doing.
I just had a comment regarding one of your slides, the condition report analysis for California National Marine Sanctuary, regarding especially Channel Islands, which is closest to us. Many years ago, maybe 10 years ago, as a scuba instructor, a scuba diver, we'd go out to the island, San Miguel Islands, for abalone. And with the shrinking foot disease that was noted in that area, we then would have to go north of Monterey, north of San Francisco, to free dive for abalone. And then that was closed because of that stress that was placed on the abalone. And I understand they're coming back based on that closure, and that all around San Miguel and Santa Cruz Island, you had areas that nobody could fish. And I think the fish are coming back. So that's just a comment that hopefully, and I know we will see improvements in the biodiversity with the different animals that are out there. So, okay. Any other questions so far? Did you want to go into the Mishap MPA, or that's just added up? We have that in our folder.
It's up to you all. We know that Point Sal is much closer in proximity to Guadalupe, so we would welcome support and help with both petitions, but it's also what's most relevant and useful for you all.
Yeah, we also we don't want to take up too much time since I think we already have maybe taken up our time chunk for today. But yeah, absolutely up to you. Or we can also, speak to it at another time as well if you're trying to stay on the agenda and not go over time too much.
I think, thank you for that. I think we'll just concentrate on the Point South side. And initially, I was glad to see that you actually changed the ability for non-tribal members to fish, because that's very important, even though it's what, 12 miles from the actual, the beach there on Main Street, all the way to Lions Rock or the Brown Road. But there are a lot of people that who do fish out there, and it's good to see that you're open. And then there's surfers out there. Surfers don't take fish, but there's a lot of folks that do. That's that's a great area for for us to establish as a preserve for a marine sanctuary. So what is it that you want from us?
We would, if you all would be willing to support the Point Sal petition, that would be incredibly helpful and supportive. I would say that I guess maybe I'll just pause there. Support would be incredible.
Okay. Now, I'm talking to Phil now. This wasn't on the agenda in terms of a movement to actually bring forward to a formal vote.
Yeah, yeah, that's correct. If you wanted to take official action to endorse the plan or something, we'd have to re-agendize it.
Okay, what we could do is look at consensus.
Yeah, you can share your opinions about it. But,
Okay.
in terms of, they wouldn't be able to rely on that support.
Right.
Based on the comments tonight, you would have the right to change your mind later if
Okay.
you wanted to.
Is there a consensus on yay or nay on this request? Yay, Jean, Councilman, Christina? Yay. Yes, well, the consensus is approval. So if we need, if we need formal action, we'd be more than happy to do that. So personally, I would, but as a council, we'd bring it back to the council and move on formal level. So
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much for the support.
any other questions from the audience or the staff? Hearing none, thank you. We appreciate you taking the time to present this and move forward on it. So good luck with that, and we'll be hearing from you in the very near future. Okay,
Amazing.
Thank you so much for having us. Yeah.
thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a good rest of your evening. Thanks again.
Okay, you too.
Thanks.
Bye.
Okay. Now we'll go to consent item. The following items are presented for city council approval without discussion of the single agenda item. Is there a council member that wishes to pull an item for further discussion? Good. Any public request to pull an item for further discussion? Anybody? How about staff? Anything? Do we get anything?
No, sir.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent item as noted?
I motion to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All ayes. So we'll go to item management report, city administrator information only.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'll be brief. Just want to let you know that the building activity is tracking similar to last year. And a lot of activity, and as Pasadena opens up, there's going to be a lot more of that. I also wanted to say that Janice and I are working with Wilden on the rate study, and she's provided them a lot of bits of information and data for them to do their analysis. And we're just waiting on providing them some more on the CIP. But that's been in motion. And so we'll see how that comes forward. Once they do all their analysis, it'll be coming to the city council for consideration. That ends my report. Thank you.
Any questions from the council? Audience? Mr. Alvarez? Okay, you're up.
One of the things that I'm really adamant about and consistent is dealing with the improvement of the city. In the capacity of our administrator, I would like to see down the road, and it's something that benefits Soul City. A structure where we have certain amount of money provided to the police department to take care of certain fees dealing with the arrest, apprehension, anyone breaking the law in the homeless population. Again, a structure to make sure once the officers respond, send with the county is forced to respond dealing with the mental issues that they may have. It leaves us off the hook. We save the person from any harm or them coming back and harming any here because we don't know. I know a popular word that gets people riled here is vetting, but it's nice to know who we have in this town, for God's sake. If the guy has a history of criminal activities, dangerous, it puts our officers in danger. Anything happens, puts the general public in danger. Just common sense. We don't have that structure in here in place or money set aside to predict maybe 10 arrests during the course of the year or whatnot. I'd like to see if it's possible because you handle the money. It's easy for you to come back and say, hey, it might cost us this. Let the people here decide, which is public safety from that perspective. And I'm glad that we're going forward on the theater because that's an issue that's really important. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, item 10, Director of Public Safety, Chief Cash.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council, citizens and staff. On the police side, Statesman Report met with the Guadalupe Union School District Superintendent, Dr. Handel, and City Administrator Bowden. We discussed traffic safety and concerning children walking to school. Mr. Bowden, if you just want to do a quick follow-up, talk with Caltrans.
Yeah, my task was to contact Caltrans to look at that intersection of Guadalupe and Main Street and flush the idea of a flashing signal crossing. So I emailed that to one of my Caltrans contacts, and she hasn't gotten back to me yet, but we'll see what we can do with that. And then, of course, David's aware of it as well, and Jeff too, because he was on the email, the city engineer. So that was kind of my task, and I'll continue to push that and see if we can get something there for a crossing, if it makes sense to them, in terms of engineering, until the new projects get underway in the next year or two. So thanks.
Okay. And we also received a community letter from a resident in the Pasadena area on concerning installing crosswalks at Obispo and I was not Bonita.
Named a few different streets, but I passed it on to you guys to analyze.
And so that's something that I was out today looking at, but we will do further analysis on that. One thing I want to hopefully bring in front of our governing board here is my reappointment to the Marion Hospital Board of Directors is coming up, and I was asked to possibly stay for another 2 years. And so that's something I will be speaking with our city administrator and hopefully council to see what their wishes are if for me to stay on the Marion Hospital Board of Directors. The other thing, Fire Captain Pat Schmidt, sitting next to me, was recognized this Saturday in Santa Barbara for a fundraiser for his and Officer David Bonifacio's work in the LA fire. They were on stage with a bunch of musicians, and Captain Schmidt also was photogenic with Prince Harry, which was very, very impressive. Only time you ever see him smile. And last but not least, it was brought up about the vandalism at the Basque House. We've had several cases of vandalism in the just recently. O'Connell Park, Point Sal Dunes, the Guadalupe Jail, 9th Street Bridge, and a lot of them seem very similar. One thing that's always brought up was our surveillance camera, and we're going to have to work with our community. Hopefully they can help us to identify a possible suspect. Patrick? The lights. That's the last one. That wasn't the first one. 14. As you can see, we got the gentleman who's he's standing right in the doorway, right there at 10th and Guadalupe, and that is the Bass House. And you can see the front there where there is no graffiti at this time. 11:30 on the 8th of March. All these are very short. Should. Okay, speed it up. You can see a skateboarder went by and we kind of went fast on that.
I can see the writing.
And also a car went by the first time. And that's some of the unfortunate aspects. Members drove right by and saw him doing that. And no one called in.
I know that guy.
Yeah, we've been going over and over looking at this, but we finally got to a point with our investigation that we all decided that we needed to get this out to ask for assistance. Yes. He saw a vehicle coming and went back. If you jump to, was it the 642? And you can see there where a resident pretty much stopped and looked at the individual, and the individual stayed just enough, but he did come back into the focus, looking at that car, wondering if they saw them, but we did not get any reports.
Flash in the background there.
Yeah. So we possibly think where the suspect may possibly live and the writing on the wall, but we're hoping to put this on our website as far as in the police section and get this out. And hopefully we're a small enough community, maybe somebody can recognize something concerning this individual. We could not get our camera wasn't that good. We can get a facial.
And or other individual caused quite a bit of damage.
Well, we're looking at the writing and what we're going to do is two things, and hopefully I'll be working with our city attorney on that. We're putting the cases together and we think there's enough similarity. If we can, I'm the one doing right now most of that case, that we can go for felony charge and do a cost recovery if we can identify the person. And also with that, we've notified the property owner as far as to take care of the property. But we also received some complaints concerning that property, and we're looking at, we've spoken with some officials in Santa Maria on their code enforcement, and I'll have a communication with our city attorney is looking into the process concerning the Basque House also. That's been there for quite a while in this situation, and we'd like to be able, hopefully maybe to tackle two at the same time. So that is my report, unless there's any questions.
Okay, thank you. I had a question regarding, you know how we had a doctor, we need medical supplies for the fire department, you know, when you had to resupply, you had a Dr. Camacho used to be the doctor. Who do you have now?
That is currently in transition. We're in discussions with CHC on securing a different doctor.
Okay. Sounds like he's got a connection with Dignity to make that happen, because it'd be nice to have that support, so,
Yeah, we've been talking to the office manager and
Okay.
the CHC here in town,
good, all right,
and they're working currently on trying to find somebody to replace him.
okay, thank you.
Mayor, could I dovetail off of Chief just to add in that the chief and Public Works Director have gotten together and agree that they put together a nice plan for the community cleanup at Leroy Park with, and they can dive into that a little further, maybe David can when he gives his report. So at bottom line is Saturday, April 5th, 2025, from 8 to 2 is the community cleanup at Leroy Park.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chief, for that updates. I just wanted to share if there's any challenges or more accidents on Main Street. And we get challenges from Caltrans to maybe make sure that our state representatives are informed. I know our state reps meet regularly with the state departments. And if they're hearing that there is a present challenge, they might be able to bring that up as well.
Thank you, ma'am. No, that's another avenue that we'll definitely look into. Thank you.
Okay. That's it, Chief?
Yes, sir.
Any questions of Chief? Further questions? HR, are you gonna cover that?
Yeah, in the absence of Sylvia, I'll give her report for public safety. Short summary here. In police, one recruit is progressing in background screening. One position remains open with applications currently being reviewed. For fire, Louis Ramos has now transitioned from PCF to full-time firefighter as
Good.
of early March. Will be acknowledged at the next city council meeting. Public Works, the new Public Works Director started on February 12th and is getting familiar with the team and operations. Recreation Parks, the Recreation and Services Managers started March 3rd. Facilities Rental Coordinator started March 4th. Union Employee Relations, SEIU MOU expires in June. Discussions will begin soon, and they have begun already. Workers' compensation, no major updates. 2 long-term claims remain under review. Employee engagement, the appreciation breakfast on February 26th was I think a huge success. And then quarterly employee recognition luncheon is in March. Details coming soon. And policy and admin work continues on drafting the city personnel policy manual. And that ends the HR manager's report.
Okay, any questions of Todd on that?
I have a question, maybe Chief can address it in terms of the recruiting. You have a police recruit in background.
Yes,
Is that
ma'am.
correct? Okay. And then we hired Rudy Alvara not too long ago, but we still have an open funded police officer position?
Yes, ma'am. We have one.
Okay, and recruiting for that.
I'm still going through the applications right now. Yes.
Okay. Are you still switching over to fire? Are you continuing to recruit for PCFs?
No, I don't have funds.
Okay. Thanks.
Any further questions, comments? All right, Public Works, David.
Just a couple key items. The end of February, we had one of the pumps in the Pasadena lift station break. That's important because we only had one in there and we had one being repaired at the time. So later on this month, we're going to end up with a big invoice because we had to have clays running round robin to the waste plant to keep the station from overflowing and creating an environmental hazard. Let's see. We did a few graffiti removals over the last couple of weeks. And then we're working the transit management plan with Santa Maria still to see if we're gonna make the merger complete. And we should be starting the dredging at the wastewater plant within the next week or so, so that we can get all that kind of operating online the way it should be. And they did do repairs to the grit separation system, which they're kind of waiting to put that online until they do the dredging so that we're not chasing our tail after we get that repaired. And that's all I have.
Okay.
Oh, and then the cleanup, sir, I'm sorry. On April 5th, working with the chief, we got cones already set up, and we have a person that will be working that day that can go out in the morning and set those cones up. So we'll be able to run the traffic the right way.
Are they gonna put the containers on the bottom side of the parking lot, or do you know?
It will be on the west corner, so that they can hit them on their way out. After they
Okay.
do the roundabout and then come out.
Okay, good, all right, that makes sense. Any questions? Go ahead.
Actually, maybe Todd, you can address it on Escalante Meadows, where it says ribbon cutting is maybe sometime in May. When I attended that Zoom meeting on the homeless last month, somebody there, I don't know who, said that it and maybe it was just thinking that it might be in April, but it's not April, and it may not even be May. And I also asked the question because there'll be another Zoom meeting in April, and I'm sure this is going to come up again.
Yeah, generally, yeah, it was supposed to be earlier, but as I continue to talk to Bob, he kind of pushes that a little bit. So I think he's earmarking sometime in June now for ribbon cutting.
Okay, good.
So yes, and I also know that within Escalante Meadows, there is is it not true that they might be allowing some units for homeless? I just wanted to add that in there because there's a homeless discussion. I think we've had some talk on that.
They're not setting aside anything specifically for unhoused individuals, but I have been contacted if I come across individuals that are in need of housing, that they would definitely listen to my referral.
Well put. Yeah, you did. Yeah, yeah. Very good.
Right, we'll go to regular business and 13. Sorry, review of conceptual site plan proposed to establish 4 short-term rental agreements. Mr. Scott, and sorry we're taking so long to get to that point, but appreciate the patience.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. No problem. I'll try to be brief. I understand that the applicant might be here to better explain the project itself, so I'll try to approach it generally from the planning standpoint. So could we go on to the next slide and get going? The property owner, Mr. Victor Early, is presenting a conceptual site plan for consideration. His envisioned use on the site plan depicts an existing house to remain, 4 rental cabins and a brewery. The property is located, it's about a 14,500 square foot property on the northeast corner of 9th Street and Olivera Street. Next slide, please. Aerial vicinity map just showing the site and the vicinity. We'll talk about a little bit more in a bit. Next slide, please. Directly, see the 9th Street label directly below. You got it. That's the car wash. Yeah, so directly on the other side of the street from the car wash.
Thank you.
Next slide, please. Yeah. Again, the project is proposed by the applicant. Again, and he'll elaborate better than I can, but he's described 2 phases. Phase 1 would be the 4 rental cabins. Phase 2 would be a brewery. The property is currently zoned R3 high density residential. So to accommodate the mixed use project, a general plan land use change and a rezone would be needed to accommodate the 3 uses. The downtown mixed use general plan and mixed zoning designations would be most appropriate. Next slide, please. Again, that's the site, the existing house on the site, nicely restored vintage house. Next slide, please. That's looking across the property, looking at, say, northwesterly. That's kind of the space where the cabins and the brewery would go if the project was pursued. You can see downtown Guadalupe, the back, I think that might be the back of the
Padrecito.
yeah, oh, you got it. Thank you. Right across the way, a little storage shed on the property. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. And again, that's the conceptual site plan. You can see up in the upper left, phase 1, the 4 cabins as proposed. The shaded is the existing house.
and the existing storage shed. And then phase two down there at the bottom would be the potential brewery. Next slide, please. That's an example of a cabin as presented by the applicant. Next slide, please. Example of what a brewery or a commercial building might look like. Trying to kind of stay consistent with the historic nature of the area, original city area. Next slide, please. So for planning, the issue gets into a couple of things. Can the site hold the three uses and land use compatibility? As we talked about, there's commercial on two sides, residential on two sides. Northwest, downtown commercial. Southwest, the car wash and commercial. Northeast and southeast is residential. So can we fit with the mix of the surrounding uses? Next slide, please. And again, there's that vicinity map. Again, the car wash directly to the south, and commercial uses, you might say, on the left-hand side or the west side. So good fit, commercial on the west. On the east, residential. Sometimes when you introduce these uses, especially the commercial use, it can be a bit more of a challenge to make the commercial use fit with the residential neighborhood. And it can be done. Next slide, please. But some of the challenges, again, neighborhood compatibility is what we look at. Existing house, by nature, there's no compatibility issue. It fits. Rental cabins. Actually, lodging uses are generally permitted in the R3 zone. So the property is already zoned R3. And so in R3 neighborhoods with a discretionary permit, cabins could potentially be conditioned to fit. So that could be made to fit with the right conditions. Brewery is a commercial use, draws crowds. That would need rezoning because that's a wholly commercial use. Again, we would look at potential noise, parking, crowd, or traffic impacts. That depends on how it operates. We don't have a detailed project description, so we can only make assumptions at this time. I've worked on a couple breweries, including one in Buellton, I think Figueroa Mountain. And there were some concerns because some of them, sometimes it depends on, again, how they operate. Is there outdoor seating? Do you have amplified sound, music? So those kinds of things could become an issue. Maybe, maybe not. Just depends on the operation and the size. Next slide, please. This could be an issue. Obviously, every use requires parking. The municipal code establishes parking requirements for the uses. For a house, the code requires 2 covered parking spaces. Should be no problem for the house. For the 4 cabins, 4 parking spaces, 1 parking space for each cabin. You would like to see the parking spaces for the cabins conveniently located to the cabins for loading, loading and unloading and that kind of thing. For the brewery, again, this is very rough estimate just based on the conceptual site plan. We estimated 27 parking spaces would be required. So roughly 33, again, just an estimate. 33 parking spaces would be required. The municipal code typically requires on-site or off-street parking. In this case, all the parking, next slide, please, would be on-street. As we can see again on the site plan, there's literally no room for parking. Again, the existing buildings, the proposed buildings, there's a driveway just under that attachment 2 that leads to the cabins, but there's little turnaround room and no parking room. So next slide, please. Applicant is proposing on-street parking. Just so happens in the downtown, on-street parking can be permitted. It's the only area in town where you can do on-street parking. And there could be on-street parking available. We'll look at that in a second. But certain findings have to be made. And one of the couple of the concerns are availability. So you allow on-street parking. Will it be available? If there's something else going on, will those parking spaces, can they be relied on to be there? And also, there's no controls on on-street parking. So when you have a use that close to a neighborhood, there's nothing to say that somebody wouldn't park in the neighborhood as opposed to the spaces that you would prefer for people to park in. So there are some concerns with on-street parking, but again, it can be done if we make the findings. Next slide, please. And that's the applicant's proposal. He's showing on-street parking. We agree. Those are also those white areas. We agree our potential on-street parking. For planning, I narrowed it down. I wouldn't go that far. I'm not sure what's a realistic walking distance, but I'd say there's a, right in front, if you can see the star, there's a 6. I'd agree with those spaces. The 13, I would agree with that. And across the street, I would agree with the 5 and 5. And actually, that'd be just about enough to accommodate most of the uses on the site. Beyond that, I'm not sure. It might be a stretch in terms of walking, but to sum it up, it could potentially be possible to have enough on-street parking for most of the needs. We still need a few on-site for a couple of reasons. Typically, and I'm not the building code expert, but typically you have to have a accessible space, handicap parking space, and that has to be close to the use. And as I indicated, in my view, you'd probably need some spaces in close in proximity to the cabin. So you'd probably need a few on site, but off-site, on street, if you want to call it on street parking, I believe could work. Again, we'd really have to look at it carefully. Next slide, please. And this is one of the issues to accomplish the project, to complete a mixed-use project like this. Again, we need to do a rezoning and a general plan change. We would change it from the current R3 high-density residential zoning district to downtown mixed-use general plan land use and zoning. So that's the issue. Do we want to pursue a land use change and a zoning change? Next slide, please. The land use change and zoning change would be feasible. What it would amount to is we'd kind of expand the downtown commercial into that corner lot. As you can see, the big mix down there at the bottom, all that orange, the dark orange area is currently zoned downtown mixed use. So we would just expand that little finger to the project site. So makes pretty good sense. Again, the surrounding lighter orange is R3 high density residential. So that would be a potential rezoning that would take to accommodate the mix of uses. Next slide, please. That's the previous 2002 general plan. They were a little bit liberal with that general plan. At that time, the entire area was zoned general commercial. So it would not be unprecedented to apply the commercial, the mixed-use zoning district to the area, given how it used to be zoned. I really like the 2042 general plan. I think they rightfully pulled back on all that commercial. And again, it's not quite as liberal. And that street is currently zoned R3 high density residential. But again, not unprecedented to go to commercial in that site. Next slide, please. And we always, when we look at a potential general plan or zone change, we look at the general plan for policies that might relate. In this case, a couple of them. The residential land use goal is to separate incompatible land uses for the reduction of nuisances. Not enough room to put the whole thing there, but the point is, could we make it fit and protect the residential neighborhood while introducing those mix of uses? And we can pretty much condition something, and we'll talk about that in a bit, but we can condition things, but when you condition things to fit, you have to be able to enforce the condition. And do you handcuff the applicant? Meaning we condition something, we might restrict what he's able, if he wants to grow or if he wants to do certain things, we might put a restriction on the business. So it's tricky. So we can condition, we could probably add those uses, but we want to do it with careful consideration. Commercial land use policy encouraged commercial uses that serve the entire community or region to locate downtown. Looks like that's a fit with that general plan policy to me. Economic development policies 7 and 1.5 attract more restaurants, wineries, and breweries and other commercial uses to diversify the city's economic base. And that in that capacity, it looks like the project fits with that general plan policy. Next slide, please. To sum it up, based on the general plan policies, it looks like that's a potentially good use. That mix of uses is a good use for the downtown area. Again, it would require a general plan, land use, and zone change to accommodate the mixed uses. Obviously, it fits the commercial uses on the northwest and southeast sides of the property, would need conditions to fit the residential areas on the northeast and southeast. And can we do it in a way that wouldn't constrain the uses that the applicant wants to pursue? Findings would need to be made to allow on-street parking, and adjustments on site would need to be made to maybe accommodate 1 or 2 parking spaces and a little bit of turnaround room around the cabin. So you might have to adjust the site plan. So it could be possible. It's a bit of a squeeze, but that's the way we see it. We're not making a recommendation. We're just presenting facts at this point. And again, neighborhood input would be crucial in a review process. Some neighbors are more receptive or sensitive than others. Some may not mind that kind of intensity and some may. So that's next slide. I think that concludes. Yes, so we're available for questions. And again, the property owner is here to explain the uses a little bit better.
Thank you, Bill. Does city parking lot have anything to do with that off-street parking in terms of the business side of things?
Mr. Mayor, it could, if it's within 300 feet. 300 feet is what the code says. If he could find even a vacant lot and get parking spaces within 300 feet.
Is that how the bird flies, or is it through the sidewalk and back around?
It's probably the sidewalks. Again, we could look at things, and there's a way we could probably make findings if there was arrangements made where customers were aware that there's this parking. Is there?
Okay. Central Park, Veterans Park,
yeah.
For the new central.
Or Central Park, yeah, which is, right.
That might be within 300 feet. I thought about that. I didn't look at that in depth.
I think that is.
So that's a potential. The code allows it, and that would work. Yes, if it's within 300 feet, it's a given that would work. The arrangement would have to be formalized that it's available, but yes.
Okay, any comments right now? Until we have the owners here to discuss it. So do you want to ask Scott?
Okay, I have a quick question. Do small cities ever complete a traffic analysis? I know Olivera Street oftentimes is very heavily congested. I was curious.
Now, for a project of this scale, we don't do a traffic analysis. Typically, there's triggers, and you run a look, and there's triggers. But at this point, one, it's conceptual, and at this scale, we haven't done one. We could do if we got as far as a project, but no study's been done at this point.
I guess outside of this project, is there ever traffic analysis, just out of curiosity, just for the as we look to expand, to grow? Just curious.
Yeah. There's one done when they do the general plan, the 2042 general plan update. There's a whole traffic study that's looked at that broad scale. I don't have the details of that at my fingertips, but it is looked at as a whole. And in general, growth and traffic are kind of go hand in hand to an extent. So some of that is expected. We could always follow up with more detail on what's in the general plan, but it is looked at that level with the 2042 general plan update.
Now we have our notes to accept public comments. They're not a public hearing.
Correct, Mr. Mayor, not a public hearing.
Okay, Mr. Early, will you? I know that he handed out a PowerPoint here. I know that he has a thumb drive, but But before you talk about this, can you talk about what you do and what you've done? And I think it'll be encompassed in here because this isn't your first rodeo.
Sure. My name is Victor Early, and this is my wife, Deborah, of 40 years nearly. And she's the one who discovered the house for us. So I'll let her discuss how we got started on this project.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. So we have owned the house about 4 years. We are actually preservation kind of buffs and just really love old buildings, have restored a number of old buildings, both homes and commercial, kind of in our lifetime. So we've been working on it for about 4 years, and that the house really needed pretty much everything. We have probably about 6 months to go. It's very much intended to be a family house. It was when we first initially, purchased it too. So it's not like we're coming in doing a business and we wouldn't be involved in the community. We very much intend to be like, part of the community. Either our daughter will live there, we'll live there part-time, but it will remain in the family and part of our family. And as far as restoration goes, if a few people have been in it, is not really ready for prime time, but we really are trying to bring everything back, to the original state to the best that we can, or put in, period, I would say upgrades like in the bathroom. So we hope that by the time we're done, it really is something that will stand for years and years to come. So we really see the basis, the primary piece of the property. We are looking at other ways to, think about utilization, of the land and the property, which kind of brought us to this point. And my husband, I'm going to flip it over to him here in a second, is looking to open up a small brewery somewhere. So that's what got us thinking about potentially this property with a few cabins.
All right, so we do want to build a brewery, and preferably we'd like to find a vacant spot in downtown instead of this site. We understand there are limitations, the parking being next to the residential, potential traffic, noise with this residential area. So we'd prefer to find a vacant building, right downtown to do the brewery. There are some restrictions for a brewery. We do need a concrete floor and a high ceiling. So that disqualifies probably a number of the historic buildings downtown. But we're still looking. So the first phase of this project would be the cabins. So up to 4 cabins, and they'd be kind of like a hotel. We've spoken to some commercial areas down here, and they say there's nowhere to stay in downtown or, stay overnight here. So this would hopefully, play on that. It wouldn't be huge. We'd have enough room for maybe up to 4 couples overnight. Each cabin would have a bed with a desk and a small kitchenette and a chair or 2. So it'd be like a hotel room. We would manage the rooms out of the house. We'd have a small area where we would designate an office, but we would keep that single family. So again, we're mainly focused, I think, on the phase 1, which are the cabins, and probably not real likely that we would do the brewery on this property. That's pretty much been covered, I think, in the prior presentation. So if there are any questions, be happy to answer. Yeah.
I'm excited about the probability of having the little cabins here, because one of the big things that we've been howling about for a long time in this community, lack of a place for people to visit. That solves the problem. It's small, but it helps on that one. We're always going to have a problem with parking. I'm sorry. This is Guadalupe. It's small. Look what we did with the Oaxaca Hilton over here. The lack of planning for parking, and all of that area is full of parking from the renters of the facility. Okay. There is a probability of this. Again, it's going to be downsizing. A great start is the cabin. That, to me, that's a great idea. I love that Victorian house. For the sake of, I have to say this. I painted that house 25 years ago. All right. In Arizona white. It was a 4-month job. I loved it because I knew the people who lived in it and the history of that place when I was a kid. So congratulations on the beautiful part on that. But let's give them an opportunity in a phase aspect where we can get that going. If that's the case with no brewery, it downsizes the parking. Thank you.
My name is Chris. I'm a resident here for 34 years now. As most of us know that live here, at least, parking sucks, especially on Olivera Street, because you get all the apartment complexes, all the homes, you got the hotel above Two Guys Pizza. Parking sucks. I don't know where they plan on getting the 33 parking spots. Yeah, the Central is a Central Park. You got maybe what, 8 parking spots there. I seen that on the slide that they were trying to get some parking on the residential street on Olivera. So you're gonna kick out parking spots for residents to appease somebody that wants to put in a business there? I don't think that's right. And
You're okay.
okay,
Okay.
they claim that the car wash is zoned commercial, which I think it should be, but on the slide, it did not indicate that it was. Nor do I believe commercial should be invading into residential, but the way it's situated, car wash is kind of in there. There was, the owner had mentioned the 4 cabins were going to be quote unquote a hotel, kind of like. Okay, so if that's the case, when I go to a hotel and I pay, I look at my receipt, there's a breakdown. The breakdown is typically the city gets a percentage of whatever that is.
6%.
So if that's the case and it is going to be what they want, is the city going to get a percentage? You know, if you're going to call it a hotel, I mean, it's what it should be. That's just about all I got on that issue.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Romero, you have a request to speak on this?
Well, good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, staff, members of the public. My name is Frances Romero, and I was not here tonight to comment on this item. I'm here for number 14. However, my day job, I'm a land use consultant, so I help people get permits for their projects. I'm a planner. And when I saw this project on the agenda, when I reviewed it, I thought, well, this is really interesting. And I think that if the brewery is disconnected from the project and it turns into a small B&B type area, I mean, good Lord. I mean, we can wait around for perfection forever, or we can let them take a shot at it. I mean, there is nowhere to stay in Guadalupe. People have been coming here for as long as I've lived here. We moved here in 97, bought our first house. And you have bicyclists that come through. And when they get here, it's like, well, you get to go to Santa Maria. You've got another 10 miles to pedal. And I believe at some point we increased our TOT. It never happened.
By 4 votes.
4 votes.
Okay, well.
Well, we still have a certain percentage though.
Okay, well, that's sad. But regardless, it's an opportunity for even people that live here that might not have extra space when family or friends come to stay, or maybe they don't want their family or friends to stay with them, that they would have a nice place where they could refer them to. 4 units is not going to crash the downtown parking situation. I would rather have that be the problem, that somebody has to walk an extra 100 feet to park, and we have people that are able to stay overnight, spend money, buy gas, buy meals out, and maybe enjoy the community, be able to go for a hike. So I'd say I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you. And this is phase 1 and phase 2. So the phase 1 would cover in terms of the cabins and parking. So comments from any further comments out there?
If I may, just speaking as the president for the Guadalupe Business Association, I absolutely think it would be fantastic. It would then play off upon the Royal Theater. We have this, the social club downtown. It would bring a benefit to the other businesses in town. And again, as everyone has said, that it would then allow for people to stay overnight, especially like that was just mentioned with the bikes tours coming through town. They could have somewhere to stay. And it would definitely just add a really nice addition. As we were just added on to the wine map, it would be a really good source of people just to come in, tourists, people driving through, wanting to stay the night and enjoy what we have to offer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just, Gene, any comments?
If you don't do the phase 2 of the brewery on that site, would you be wanting to put more cabins if you could? It there, if it does be successful for you?
Yes, I think 4 cabins would be the maximum that we would put there. If we didn't do the brewery, I think we would add more landscaping and perhaps more parking for the cabins. But no more than 4.
I echo what everybody has said about the 4 cabins. I think that's excellent because we don't have a motel or a hotel here. I'm very familiar with this property and the house, having grown up 2 houses down from this property, and actually played on the stairwell with a slinky when I was a kid, not too long ago.
How long ago was that?
Not too long ago. So I'm very familiar, and I'm glad that you mentioned, Mr. Lee, that you may not do the brewery there, because I just can't. I can't see any retail commercial endeavor there. Clearly, I see the cabins. I think that's really cool to do that, and that you now say, if in answer to Jean's question about whether you put additional cabins, I've watched the landscaping, and I've watched over time how you've refurbished everything. It's very nice to see, and I had no idea what was going to happen with the house, and so it's very nice to see that you've come in and hopefully we'll put in these cabins. So that's a good job.
Good job.
Yeah, I just think it's a great test run for the hotel and economic development, and a catalyst for the future. If you look at any land use, you have the commercial and then you have residential over here. It's a nice transition of use from the commercial to a little bit lower intensity than to the residential. So I think it allows for a good transition. So it's not really overpowering the neighborhood, in my opinion.
I have a question of Bill while he's up there.
Please, yeah.
Bill, you were talking, I think I read in the staff report, but you also mentioned the parking for the cabins, and I see the cabins would be towards the back. A driveway, where would the driveway be to that?
The driveway is shown directly. Yeah, thank you. On the site plan, there we go. We just had it there. It's kind of hard to see. You see that attachment's in the upper right, and it's right below there. It's a little light. But there you go. There's the driveway to the cabins, right off of Olivera. So it actually probably, yeah. So can you see it there? So they'd need a 12-foot two-way driveway by code, so you could go in and out. 2 cars could go in and out. And again, as shown, it's a little tight, but with a little more room. Right now, there's no turnaround. But again, that is the driveway. Yes.
Next to the small
is.
house, that's
It is next to the small house. It would be.
in between. Okay, I
Yes,
got it.
It would be.
Done.
I also think that you're looking at a property that's a bit obsolete. So by having this done, they're going to be injecting, money into the project, which will help beautify the city even more and create higher property taxes and that kind of thing for the benefit of the city.
Two things. One, that one little shaded area that's the shed there. And I know there was talk about keeping it or eliminated. Is there any thought about what you may do with that? Yeah, that one. Thank you.
That's the old water tower. We love that building. That's going to stay there.
Okay, cool. And it's that's a fifth, your fifth shed. I just want to mention, in many of the communities around the Central Coast, we see buildings being torn down and then replaced by, real modern buildings, which is going upstairs. But it's, this building, Docini House was built in 1899. And to refurbish it like you folks are doing is just a great commitment to the community and to the history that we have here. So I appreciate that. Any more public comments out there?
Just, I'm sorry if I keep going.
You want to come up here?
Yeah. Well, I just see it as, it sounds like just the cabin part is a discretionary permit, right? So it wouldn't require a zone change, only the brewery. So that, is helpful to know.
Is that fig tree still there or is it still there? Because we had one of our individuals on the table here used to steal figs from up there. So walnut tree. The walnut tree's gone.
Is
The walnut tree's gone?
Okay.
There was in the back.
Okay.
Yeah, there was.
Replan. Yeah, you're looking for direction from the council?
Oh, I was just gonna add the cabins, to answer Todd's question, the cabins would be permitted. They're permitted in the R3 zone with a discretionary permit. In this case, the 4 cabins would be allowed with a design review permit. So the city council would have to review and approve a design review permit. And again, they'd look at conditions like landscaping, where the office is, lighting, but could be done under the current zoning. Yes.
I don't think you mentioned that there's a restroom in here or not. There's a restroom for these cabins or?
Good question.
Yeah.
So that's a good question. We originally planned to have the restrooms attached to the back of the brewery. So we need to work out whether or not we'll have an individual restroom in each cabin.
Okay.
But most likely we would.
All right. I'm good with it. You're Gene? Yep. Got the nod. Good. You need anything from us? All right. Great job. Thanks for coming before us. So. All right. All right, item 14. Information report for public safety staff on feasibility of amending Guadalupe Municipal Code 6.04.210. Prohibition of foul livestock and wild animals. Mr. Cash.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm trying to go through this quickly. I see we have individuals here who would love to speak. On the summary, Guadalupe Municipal Code Section 6.04.201. Prohibition of foul livestock and wild animals states no person shall keep, harbor, maintain upon his or her premises within the city any foul livestock or wild animals. If a person has any foul livestock or wild animals on the effective date hereof, the person shall have 90 days from the effective date hereof to come into compliance with this section. Some community members have voiced concerns and continued support of this ordinance to guard against rodent infestation, noise pollution, and public health concerns. Some residents have voiced support to change the current ordinance to allow the keeping of fowl, but no male fowl or roosters, to help with pest control, fight inflation, i.e. the rising cost of eggs, and increase access to healthy food alternatives. So we're asked for a recommendation from City Council, receive presentation from staff and accept public testimony and close public comment, deliberate and file the report, or direct staff to prepare an ordinance, or direct staff to return to council when a draft ordinance is ready for consideration, or continue to another council meeting for further discussion and deliberation. And just the background on this, public safety staff have received verbal and written concerns, which the written concerns are attached from residents in support of keeping the current ordinance as is, and from community members to amend the ordinance to allow fowl in residential areas. And in bringing this information to council, we would like to know if you have a desire to amend the current ordinance or leave the current ordinance in place as written to address the community's concerns. So with that, we'd like to submit our report and also the attachments to this report.
Okay. There's quite a bit of thought about this in terms of for the public and also the staff. And we have about 5 differing public comments via the email. And for justice sake, and I think Mrs. Romero actually lined out, as did her husband, which are public record in terms of what they've commented about regarding the ordinance and some of the issues that could be enhanced by this. Mrs. Romero, do you want to come up and talk a little bit about this? And if you don't mind, can you just recap you have an excellent presentation here in terms of what you're looking at, and if you have 4 pages of documents here, but if you don't mind highlighting, I could highlight it, but I'll let you, since you've done it. Can you go ahead and talk about your concerns?
Certainly. Thank you, Mayor Julian, members of the council, staff, and members of the public. My name is Frances Romero, and I wanted to provide my thoughts in writing because I knew I could not do them in a 3-minute presentation. Basically, the highlights are that this is the 5th time this issue has come up to the City Council in the last 19 years. A lot of times this comes up because of either temporary economic situations or because somebody has received a notice of violation, and rather than willingly comply with the rules, or after they've had to get rid of their chickens, they then decide that they would like the rules changed to accommodate their behavior. We have a lot of small single-family lots throughout the city. So when you're talking about bringing farm animals onto a residential lot, where do people normally put things? They put it in their backyard up against their fence, which means that's going to create a nuisance for their neighbor on the other side of the fence. I responded in my written comments to some of the alleged benefits of somebody having chickens, and having chickens doesn't necessarily save you money, not if you take care of them properly. If you provide them with a decent coop and shelter, 4-sided shelter, if you feed them chicken scratch. One of the attachment 1 was talking about feeding the chickens scraps from the kitchen. Well, if you do a little research, a chicken's diet should only be comprised of 10% of kitchen scraps and only certain types of scraps. So imagine putting the food that's supposed to go in your compost bucket out on the ground, and it sits there day in and day out while the chickens eat it, and maybe you're mixing in some scratch. That's a really attractive nuisance for rats, for flies. And I see that the attachment from the member of the public who would like to see chickens says, oh, it's great, it's natural, there's not a lot of effort. Well, if you don't put any effort into it, then your neighbor is going to be impacted by the nitrogen-rich smell of chicken manure, which is not pleasant. I have experienced that firsthand, and not everybody collects their chicken manure daily, nor do they dispose of it properly. So if somebody is washing their yard down, as was the case with my neighbor, I had a 5 by 10 foot wet area in the back of my yard for months until the chickens were removed. The area stunk horribly, and thankfully we had really great rains in January, and it seems to have leached that out of our yard. The smell was so bad that my dog started digging, which brings the next concern, which is the reason the prices of eggs are up is because of chicken flu. Guess what? Chickens in somebody's backyard can also get the chicken flu. I mean, it happens. And dogs and cats can also become infected because of lack of sanitation and things of that nature. Oh, okay, thank you. And I did want to mention one thing, that Gene Hackman's wife ended up dying from the rat droppings, the hantavirus. So this is serious stuff if people are not taking the time to care for their chickens. My husband is an emergency manager with the city of Stockton. It's the 11th largest city in California. And he also brought up a list of public health safety issues related to the H1N1 and other concerns. I don't have his comment letter in front of me, but I do have it back at my seat. So my husband, who's traveling out of state, otherwise he would have been here, indicated there's an increased risk of zoonotic diseases. Chickens can carry diseases like Salmonella, E. coli, avian influenza that can be transmitted to humans. Allergies and respiratory issues from chicken dander feathers droppings can be exacerbating of allergies and respiratory problems. We had a lot of feathers in our backyard during the violation. The attraction of rodents and pests, improper disposal of chicken waste and manure can cause contamination and unpleasant odors. Could be a strain on the existing waste management systems as chicken waste, about 75% of what chickens eat turns into waste. So for just a little fact there, potential for water contamination from improper disposal of chicken waste can lead to contamination of groundwater and stormwater runoff, which is what we personally experienced. Predator concerns. Chickens are vulnerable to predators such as raccoons, opossums, domestic dogs and cats. Potential for abandonment when residents find that chicken ownership is more challenging, or sometimes people decide to slaughter them in their backyard. Noise pollution, odor complaints, property values, and enforcement difficulties. So if you allow this to be done by right, and there's not a permit path, then when a neighbor ends up with a situation where they can't sit in their backyard because of the odor from the manure, that's going to cause some neighborhood problems. If my dog contracts a disease and ends up getting very sick and or dies, that will be a whole problem of a different scale. I can guarantee that. We also know that we have coyotes in our neighborhoods, at least in Point Sal, and we're just creating an attractive nuisance. We'd appreciate you keeping the ordinance the way it's been for the last several decades. It's there for a reason.
Thank you. Mr. Alvarez. Is he still here? Yeah, he is. Okay. Thank you.
You're well aware of my intent was to save money for the people that have to pay the large sums of money for buying a dozen eggs. Okay. Again, I have a warped sense of humor. I find it humorous that the concern of chickens and like citizens can't pick up their dog crap on people's yards. All right. We have that problem, a severe problem. Back to the chickens. Okay. It can be done if it's regulated. Unfortunately, we don't have the staff. Can you imagine having the code enforcer going after every yard? We have a large amount of chickens anyway that exist right now in the city of Guadalupe. We had an incident. The lieutenants of the fire department's well aware of a chicken situation here, not to mention exactly what it is. And that particular lot was immaculate, taken care of. The chicks were so clean, they had tucks on them. That's the way they were, okay? But they took care of that problem. Congratulations, they did the ordinance thing. So if that's the case, we have to follow through with our rules. You still have to have the general public give their idea of it. I'm just one person. That's what democracy is all about, getting opinions of everybody. Some aren't going to be good, some are going to be, it's what the people, I just wanted to come here and make sure that the people have an opportunity to voice their opinion on something that can be economically. And then again, there's issues here that was brought up by our ex-mayor here. I have no problem. I have a lot of respect for her. So having that said, it's on your court.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments? Thank you. Good courier, man.
How's the ankle?
So I, for one, I'm all for chickens. Maybe not roosters. I do, roosters are a little noisy for my taste. I said, I'm all for chickens. They help alleviate, the cost, especially right now. I know I was reading one of the emails, someone mentioned, oh, it'll be all over after Easter. That ain't the case. It won't be. It ain't. How about you guys? I just went to the store. I spent $11 on a dozen eggs. That's $1 an egg. That's ridiculous. I've actually been looking into the cost to getting house coop and a run for a couple chickens. It's not that expensive. 6 months in, you're recouping the cost you spent on a chicken coop and run and feed and potential medication. There are plenty of benefits for chickens. They're pest controls. Somebody mentioned flies. They eat the flies. They help if you guys have a garden. I'm a guy, I don't garden. That's not my forte, but they help with your gardens. Yes, they do. They are high waste, but if your soil is low nutrient, hey, that's best for you. They help out your garden in that aspect as well. There's pros and cons to everything. To me, the pros are outweighing the cons, but that's just my outlook on it. Someone mentioned the waste. Yes, like I said, yes, they do produce waste. Some people don't pick them up. My neighbor doesn't pick up their dog crap. Doesn't mean that I want dogs to be banned. Come on. We got to help out our neighbors. Got to help out the people of our city. And one way to do that is try to keep money in their pockets. Yeah, like I said, from my math, my guesstimation is it would take me about 6 months. I'm a family of 3. I'm a single dad. I got 2 boys. We go through a dozen eggs in 2 days. You count, that's $50 a week. Easy.
Thank you for the comment. Anybody else out there?
I was kind of on the fence about this, but
Like a chicken?
about the chickens. At one point, we had chickens on 3 sides of our house. The only place we didn't have chickens was in the street. The chickens from one yard would fly over the fence and be chased by our dogs. I had to go over and show the lady how to trim the wings on the chickens so they couldn't come into our yard. They also don't maintain a back part of we have deep lots. They don't maintain the back half of their lots. So we have a lot of rodents, and the chickens attract those with the food and the waste and everything. So I'm against it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else? Council?
I'm just gonna ask everybody out there a question. Where do eggs come from? Chickens, right? The price of chickens the price of eggs are expensive. But yet, how come chicken meat's not going up with the bird flu? Okay. I'm okay with limiting what we have and amending our ordinance, but also I understand where our citizens are coming from. How do we regulate it? So we have to come up with the process of, we're gonna do it. We gotta have a limited amount, but also a fee of a permit to have this going on so we can hold people accountable. Yes, there are a lot of our residents here who don't go by the rules, but at least if you have houses on a list that are there, you don't have to really regulate on them because they're paying the city back for having this. Now they can go out and go after those who aren't complying with that ordinance and give them the option, because yes, the biggest concern is you do it, people are going to get roosters. That's where the noise comes from. Laying hens for eggs are very quiet. They don't make too much noise like roosters do. So that's my take on that.
Seen? Hmm? Okay, me neither.
I have mixed feelings on this. I grew up with a chicken coop in my backyard, back to the house on Olivier Street. My dad had 5 or 6 chickens every morning. My brothers and I would go back to the chicken coop, a very clean chicken coop because we had to clean it and pick up the eggs and all things like that. So I have that in the back of my mind. But I also know that if you don't take care of it, it can be smelly, it can be messy, and it can get very ugly. And rats and all those types of things, rodents come into play. And I've gone back and forth on this. Obviously, considering the individuals who are saying, well, we're all saying that eggs are expensive. But I think this is a knee-jerk reaction to a situation that will get rectified. How soon, I don't know, but it will get rectified. So with all of that said, and listening to comments, reading the emails that have come in and so forth, I'm inclined to say that we should keep the ordinance as it is.
Thank you. Hey, out of respect for our neighbor across the street, Miss Shirley Boydston wrote, and it's a quick one. When I was growing up in Guadalupe in the 30s and 40s, nearly every home had a garden and many raised chickens. But that was a necessity, and there were few markets from which to buy food necessities. It was DIY time. Do it yourself. Chicken raising was messy, and the process took time and money, probably rarely equaled the number of eggs gathered. Fast forward to World War II, then supermarkets began in town, and buying our food was easier than growing and processing it. Also, women began entering the workforce and less time to spend in the kitchen. That's from Shirley, not me. In the Christian world, this time is a Lenten season, a time of reflection and lessening reliance on material things in life. In fact, many Christians make a practice of giving up things for food or food that they would like to drive home the point of sacrifice. So if eggs are too expensive for you, just don't buy them during this 6-week period, a small sacrifice. And after Easter prices will drop and the panic mode will stop. I say no to backyard chickens. They can annoy neighbors and pets and bring pests like rats into the neighborhood and generally affect the overall look and quality of our community. Recognize an important imminent problem and stop it before it is a major problem. No backyard chickens. Do you want to say anything before?
I had chickens growing up and it was extremely hard to take care of. And my mom held me to it, to making sure I took care of those chickens. But I've also had neighbors with chickens, so I know that this is challenging. Yeah.
Go ahead, please.
Additional comment to what Councilmember Costa Jr. said, as far as if we had permits, if individuals weren't complying and so forth, that kind of got me into the code compliance issue. Right now, we have a code compliance officer, Josue, and I have no idea if the council agreed to change the ordinance and allow chickens, how many people would actually purchase chickens and have coops in their backyard or wherever. But I would see the need for code compliance and, the possibility of having a workload that exceeds what the current code compliance officer has, and would that require additional staff and things like that? And if that was the case, then I would say, our staff is small already, and if we had additional funds for anything, I would say I would not to have code compliance tracking individuals who are not complying with the ordinance if we said chickens were allowed.
I'm gonna question the council. How many council members have roosters near their home? No. Have you heard of roosters in your neighborhood? You, Gene?
Chickens.
I think one of my neighbors might have.
Chicken? And they're not allowed, right? Okay, how about you? You hear roosters. I hear roosters. How many goats do we have and how many sheep do we have in town? I know of 3. Yeah, yeah. Well, and how many homes do we have in, how many residential areas do we have in our homes, home sites, like 1,700?
Yeah, I think, yeah, somewhere in there. yeah.
1,600. So what if everyone had a chicken coop?
Yeah.
So, I wouldn't want, chickens, in my backyard, and I know that, and it's an issue with the price of, for families with the price of eggs, but I think what happens is that once the bird flu thing slowly, hopefully quickly eases out, then we won't have the problem with eggs. Go ahead.
I don't want to get involved in the politics of this, but I will say that there is some discussions that there's a lot of price gouging going on with eggs anyway. They're taking advantage of a situation where they're hiking it up to profit, and that eventually will probably get corrected.
Well, the thing too is that if you buy chicks, that takes what, 4 or 5 weeks, or maybe even longer, before they mature to where they have eggs. And I'll guarantee you that somebody will say, well, I got chickens. How about if I get a rooster so I can have more chickens? I'm opposed to this. I don't want to, I personally do not want to see us do anything with this ordinance.
I just had a quick question for Philip, Mr. Cinco. Does Santa Maria have an ordinance?
Thank you for that question, Councilmember Hernandez. As you know, I was in Santa Maria for almost 20 years, and yes, the whole time I was there, chickens were allowed. Roosters were not. And we would only enforce the code enforcement, would only enforce the roosters when they were complained about. I will just say that I'm not aware of any complaints that we had. We never received any complaints about conditions of the chickens being nuisance. I can see that there probably were nuisance conditions just that weren't reported, but it was not really an issue in the code compliance. Roosters, we did have a lot of complaints about roosters though.
Okay. Can you staff want to know which way we want to go? We'll do a head count.
Keep the ordinance as is written. Don't change it.
Mr. Costa.
I'd like to amend it.
Christina. Yeah. turn it on.
As is.
Keep it as is, no changes. Okay. And even if she were here and went the other way, it'd be 3-2, I think. Okay.
Do you want to do a motion, or just is that staff satisfied? We were only asking for
I don't think we
feedback.
need to do a motion.
Okay.
for that. Okay. All right. Thank you, audience, for being here. The other item, like was mentioned on the agenda, the request for using the park or parking lot for National Day of Prayers moot now. The next item is future agenda items. Any future agenda items, folks?
No future agenda items, but I do see somebody with a name tag, and I wasn't sure if she wanted to share something.
I can answer that.
Okay.
That's Midge Nakasha. She was with Community Partners in Caring. She sent me an email saying that she got here after community participation forum and she wanted to make an announcement. Would the council
Yeah,
consider
please.
that? Okay. I told her she'd have to wait till after the future agenda. No, I didn't.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Phil. I really appreciate that. My name is Midge Nikosian with Community Partners in Caring. And you may or may not have heard, we are having the very first Santa Maria Valley Senior Expo since the 90s this Friday. And the reason I'm here is that Guadalupe is part of the Santa Maria Valley. And I have been pounding the pavement, getting businesses to participate. And now I want seniors to participate and make sure that they know about it. I do have information, which I put some, and it's in English and Spanish, I put some on the back table, but it is this Friday at Allen Hancock College in the Joe White Memorial Gymnasium. It is sponsored by Community Partners in Caring, Allen Hancock College, and Dignity Health. There's going to be health checks, some free giveaways. There's going to be magic, some Model A cars, a couple of dogs, and about 86 or 7 providers of services for seniors and those with disabilities, including wheelchair manufacturer, a great organization that helps people in wheelchairs access the nature trails. Just so many different resources, medical, legal, financial, insurance, and the county. Several county organizations will be there with their information about assistance for seniors and those with disabilities. So I just welcome the the public from Guadalupe, and I hope that they will come out to attend the event and get information that is much needed for our seniors in our community. And thank you so much for allowing me to make this announcement, and I appreciate you sharing the email as well. Thank you.
Do you have other flyers?
I have flyers and
Okay.
printed flyers that are here in English and Spanish, and I left some on the table. I'll leave these over there if anyone would like them. If there's any other places in Guadalupe that I can go, I have to get to the senior center tomorrow. I will drop off any flyers to any businesses that will gladly.
Well, they'll be there at 10 o'clock tomorrow. So do you already have a scheduled appointment at Senior
No.
Center?
No, I will go there tomorrow on my
Yeah,
way
it's a
in.
good time to go.
Okay, yeah.
They'll be there.
I've just been running around town. It's just a one-person show.
Okay. Okay.
Phil knows I went to the Rotary.
And what are the times?
The event is from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. We already have all of our exhibitors in place and the map and everything. So it will be in the Santa Maria Times. They're going to put a special insert with the map of the event, and I'll be able to find. There is the first 500 attendees, senior attendees, not children. Children are welcome, but the senior attendees will get a goodie bag with some gift items in it. And it's free to the public, so we hope you come out, and we're praying for no rain, but it's inside, so it's going to be fine. Even if it rains, it'll be cozy inside with a lot of fun. So the Central Coast Conjurers are going to do some in-person magic for you.
All right, good. All right.
I'm glad to hear it's inside because I'm one of the volunteers.
All right.
Registration table, so.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you letting me speak.
Okay, you're welcome.
All right,
Thank you.
take care.
Okay, future agenda items. We're good?
Well, for unscheduled would probably be the 9th and Olivero project. And then also the National Resource Defense Council Marine, the item that was on for the presentation.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion, council activity reports, I'm sorry. We'll start with Jean, anything? Christina?
No council reports. I just wanted to share that I am alongside Emily Drilling and a few other individual community members in Guadalupe. We are planning a Women's Day event on March 23rd from 2 to 4 p.m. We will be sharing those flyers shortly, but we do invite the community to join us. March 23rd on a Sunday from 2 to 4 p.m.
Where at?
At the City Hall
In here or the auditorium?
in this auditorium.
Okay, great. Amelia?
Just briefly, I want to mention that Saturday at the Red Barn is a treasure sale by the Historical Society. And also being Women's Month, Historical Month, oh, come on, Amelia. The display case in the hallway at City Hall, there'll be a new display that Albert Nunes Jr. Will be putting up.
Good. I think, when was it, last Saturday? Do we have a training? SBK? Yeah, okay, yeah. In Solvang, we had an SBK retreat, and that is to go over all the projects that are coming forward in the county of Santa Barbara. And upwards of reissuing a continuance of Measure A, which is bringing money into the community. We have tomorrow's there's a North County retreat in Solvang. And we had the food bank last Thursday, and that we saw 90 individuals that hadn't been there before. So 90 was that new, and upwards of 309 families that were served. So all the volunteers appreciate that. That's the most we've ever seen. It shows that there's a need for food. And I know the school was starting today. The school, or do you know? Thursday, or the school is actually doing the same thing. So the food bank has noted that there aren't enough outlets for food distribution here in the town. So they're working with the school district to do that. So that's it. Is there a motion for adjournment?
I'll motion to adjourn.
There's a second.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you, David, Tara, for being here.